You think you know what destroys marriages. You think it's cheating or money problems or growing apart. I spent 34 years as a marriage counselor in Chicago. I've sat across from over 200 couples as their marriages fell apart in my office. I've watched the same pattern destroy relationships that looked perfect from the outside. And I'm going to tell you something that nobody wants to hear. The thing that kills marriages isn't what you think it is. I started my practice in 1989, fresh out of Northwestern with a degree in family therapy and the kind of optimism that only comes from never having watched love die up close. I thought I could save every marriage that walked through my door. I thought if people just communicated better, listened harder, tried more, they'd make it. I was wrong about almost everything. Here's what I learned after 34 years and over 200 divorces. The marriages that end don't end because of one big thing. They end because of something so small, so invisible, that most couples don't even notice it happening until it's too late. They end because people stop choosing each other. Not in the big moments, in the small ones, every single day. Before you think I'm some idealistic therapist who's never faced real problems, let me tell you what I know about hard times.
This isn't what we agreed to at all. Look at these numbers.
I am looking at them. You're the one who changed the plan.
My own marriage almost ended in 2003. 15 years in, 2 kids, a mortgage we couldn't afford, and my husband David dealing with his father's Alzheimer's while working 60-hour weeks. We went 9 months where every conversation was about logistics. Who's picking up the kids? Did you pay the electric bill? Your mother called again. We stopped choosing each other. We stopped being partners and became roommates managing a household. And I didn't even notice it happening because I was too busy saving other people's marriages. One Tuesday night in November, David looked at me across the dinner table and said, "I don't think you even like me anymore." That sentence saved our marriage because it was true. And I had to decide right then if I was going to choose him or let us become another statistic. I chose him. Every day after that, I chose him. Not perfectly, not even close, but I chose him. That's what this is about. The choice you make when you're tired, when you're angry, when you'd rather be right than connected. The choice to turn toward instead of away. Let me tell you about the marriages I watched die, so you understand what I mean. Let me tell you about Jennifer and Mark Thompson. They came to me in March of 2011, married 11 years, 2 daughters, 8 and 6. Mark was a construction manager. Jennifer was a pediatric nurse. They sat on my couch with a foot of space between them, and I knew before they said a word that they were already gone. Jennifer spoke first. She always spoke first. He doesn't talk to me anymore. He comes home, eats dinner, watches TV, goes to bed. We haven't had a real conversation in months. Mark sat there with his arms crossed. "I'm tired, Jen. I work 10 hours a day. I come home, I'm tired. What do you want from me?" "I want you to see me," she said. And her voice broke on the word see. I asked them to tell me about their week. Just walk me through a normal week. Monday through Friday, Mark left the house at 6 in the morning. Jennifer got the girls ready for school, dropped them off, worked her shift at the hospital, picked them up, made dinner, helped with homework, gave baths, read stories. Mark got home around 7, ate whatever Jennifer had saved for him, and sat in front of the TV until he fell asleep. On weekends, Mark played golf on Saturday mornings. Jennifer took the girls to their activities. Sunday, they went to her parents' house. They were living parallel lives in the same house. I asked them when they last chose each other. When was the last time one of them turned toward the other just because? They couldn't remember. Here's what I know about Jennifer and Mark that I didn't put in my notes. On their third session, Jennifer told me that 6 years earlier, right after their second daughter was born, she'd asked Mark to come to bed early one night, not for sex, just to lie with her because she'd had a terrible day at work. A 3-year-old had died in her arms. She needed him. He told her he was in the middle of a game and he'd come up later. He never came up. He fell asleep on the couch. She said that was the night she stopped asking. That was the night she started building a life that didn't require him to show up. Mark told me weeks later that he didn't even remember that night. He said he was sure it wasn't a big deal at the time. How was he supposed to know? That's the problem. You're not supposed to know which moments matter. They all matter. Jennifer and Mark divorced in August of 2011. The divorce was civil. They split custody 50-50. Mark got the girls every other week and 2 nights in between. Jennifer started dating a pharmacist she met at the hospital a year later. Mark never remarried. I saw Mark 3 years ago at a Starbucks in Lincoln Park. He was alone, reading the newspaper. I almost didn't approach him, but he saw me first. We talked for 10 minutes. He asked about my practice. I asked about his daughters. Then he said something I've never forgotten. I think about that couch every day, the one in your office. I think about the way Jen looked at me that day and said she wanted me to see her. I didn't know what she meant then. I thought she was being dramatic, but I know now. I know exactly what she meant. He paused. I see her now, but she's with someone else, and he sees her first. This is the first thing you need to understand. The person you're with is making bids for your attention every single day. Small bids. Can you listen to this story about my day? Can you look at this thing I found? Can you just sit with me for 5 minutes? And every time they make a bid, you have a choice. You can turn toward them, or you can turn away. When you turn toward them, you're saying, you matter. What you're saying matters. I choose you right now in this moment. When you turn away, you're saying, this thing I'm doing is more important. You can wait. You're not my priority right now. Do that enough times and one day they stop making bids. One day they stop asking you to see them because they've learned you won't. That's what killed Jennifer and Mark's marriage. Not one big moment. 1,000 small moments where Mark turned away. Let me tell you about another couple. David and Lisa Chen. They came to me in 2015. Married 19 years. No kids by choice. David was a software engineer. Lisa was a high school English teacher. They came in because Lisa had kissed someone else. Not an affair. A kiss. At a conference in Boston. She'd told David the next day. She felt terrible. She wanted to save their marriage. David wanted to understand why. Here's what Lisa told me in our second session, when David wasn't there. We were at this bar after the conference dinner. This guy, another teacher from Minnesota, we'd been talking all day about curriculum stuff. He was funny. He asked me questions about my life and actually listened to the answers. We had 3 drinks. He asked me what my favorite book was, and I started telling him about this essay by Joan Didion that I loved, and he stopped me and said, wait, I want to remember this. And he pulled out his phone and made a note about it so he could read it later. She started crying. David hasn't asked me about a book I've read in 10 years. He hasn't asked me what I think about anything in 10 years. This stranger cared more about what I had to say than my husband has cared in a decade. She kissed him because for one moment, someone saw her as interesting. Someone chose to pay attention to what mattered to her. I'm not excusing what she did, but I understood why she did it. When David came back for the next session, I asked him to tell me what Lisa cared about, what she was passionate about, what she was struggling with at work. He couldn't answer. He genuinely could not tell me a single thing Lisa was currently interested in or worried about or excited by. They'd been married 19 years, and he didn't know her anymore. Not because she'd changed into someone else, because he'd stopped paying attention. Here's what I know about attention. Attention is the most basic form of love. When you pay attention to someone, you're saying, "You're worth my time, you're worth my focus, you're worth pulling my mind away from everything else and putting it on you." David thought he was paying attention to Lisa. He came home every night. He didn't cheat. He helped around the house. He thought that was enough. But he hadn't really looked at her in years. He didn't know she'd cut her hair different because she was feeling invisible at work. He didn't know she was struggling with her mother's early dementia. He didn't know she'd stopped sleeping well because she was anxious about their future. He knew facts about her. He didn't know her. David and Lisa stayed married, but it took 2 years of hard work. David had to learn how to pay attention again. He had to learn that marriage isn't a contract where you just show up. It's a choice you make every day to stay curious about the person you chose. Last I heard, they were doing well. David retired early last year, and Lisa told me they spent the first month of his retirement doing nothing but talking, catching up on years of not really seeing each other. They're one of the ones who made it, but barely. You want to know what the research says about this? Dr. John Gottman, the guy who studied thousands of marriages, can predict with over 90% accuracy whether a couple will divorce just by watching them interact for a few minutes. You know what he's looking for? He's looking at those bids for attention. He's counting how many times one partner turns toward the other versus turns away. Couples who stay married turn toward each other 86% of the time. Couples who divorce turn toward each other only 33% of the time, 86%. That means you can miss it sometimes. You can be tired or distracted or caught up in your own stuff, but you can't miss it most of the time. The marriages that survive are the ones where people stay present, where they put down the phone when their partner is talking, where they remember what their partner told them yesterday and ask about it today, where they notice when something is off and they ask about it instead of pretending everything's fine. Let me tell you about Rachel and Tom Henderson. They came to me in 2008, married 6 years, one son, 3 years old. Rachel was a lawyer at a big downtown firm. Tom was a high school basketball coach. They came in because Tom said he felt like a background character in Rachel's life. Rachel worked 70-hour weeks. She left before their son woke up and came home after he was asleep. On weekends, she worked from home, laptop at the kitchen table, barely looking up. Tom handled everything else, the kid, the house, the groceries, the bills. Rachel told me she was doing it for them. She was up for partner. Another 2 years of this and they'd be set financially. Then she could pull back. Tom said he didn't care about the money. He cared about having a wife. Rachel looked at him like he was being unreasonable. "I'm building a career. I'm building our future. Why can't you support that?" "I do support it," Tom said, "but you're not here. Even when you're here, you're not here. I talk to you and you're thinking about work. Our son drew you a picture last week and you said, 'That's nice, honey,' without even looking at it. You didn't see that he drew the 3 of us at the beach because he remembers last summer when you actually took a week off and we went to Michigan. He drew it because he misses you." Rachel started crying then. She told me later that she'd convinced herself that her family was fine, that she was doing the hard thing so they could have a better life. What she'd actually done was opt out of their daily life entirely. I asked her what would happen if she didn't make partner, if she stayed at the senior associate level and worked 50 hours instead of 70. Would they be okay financially? She said yes, they'd be fine. They'd have less savings, but they'd be fine. Then what are you actually sacrificing your family for? I asked her. She didn't have an answer, because the truth was she'd gotten so caught up in the achievement, in the external validation of making partner, that she'd stopped asking herself what she actually wanted. She wanted to make partner because that's what you were supposed to want. That's what success looked like. But success was costing her everything that actually mattered. Rachel made a choice that month. She went to her firm and told them she was stepping back. She moved to a smaller firm with better hours. She took a pay cut, and she started showing up for her family again. Tom told me a year later that the day Rachel came home at 5 o'clock for the first time in 3 years, their son ran to the door and stopped dead. He said, "Mommy, why are you home? Are you sick?" He'd forgotten what it was like to have her there. That was 4 years into their marriage. They could still fix it. If Rachel had waited until year 10, until year 15, I don't think they would have made it. Rachel and Tom are still married. Their son is 19 now, in college. Rachel made partner eventually at the smaller firm on her own timeline. She told me last year that she doesn't regret the choice she made for a second. "I could have had a bigger title," she said, "but I wouldn't have had a family." Here's what I need you to understand. Every marriage has a breaking point, the point where you've turned away so many times that the person stops trying, where the distance becomes so wide that you can't bridge it anymore. Some couples hit that point in 5 years, some in 20. But it's always the same pattern. You get busy, you get tired, you have kids and careers and aging parents and a house that needs work and friends who need you and a million things pulling at you every single day. And in the middle of all that noise, you forget to choose the person you married. You forget that they need to know they still matter to you, not just in theory, in practice, in the daily moments. The marriages that die are the ones where people wake up one day and realize they've been living as roommates for years. They've been managing a household together, but they haven't been partners. They haven't been lovers. They haven't been friends. They've been two people passing each other in the hallway. Let me tell you about Michael and Patricia Foster. They came to me in 2017, married 28 years, 3 grown children. Michael was a dentist. Patricia had been a stay-at-home mom who went back to work as a real estate agent when the youngest left for college. They came in because Michael had been having an affair for 8 months. Patricia found out by accident. A text message on his phone. He'd forgotten to delete it. The woman was 34 years old, one of his dental hygienists. In the first session, Patricia kept asking why. Why would he do this? What was wrong with her? What did this girl have that she didn't? Michael sat there, looking at his hands. Finally, he said, "She paid attention to me." Patricia lost it. "I've paid attention to you for 28 years. I raised your children. I ran your household. I've been here every single day." "You've been here," Michael said quietly, "but you haven't seen me in 10 years. That stopped her. He told us that for the last decade, since their youngest started high school, Patricia had built this whole new life. Her real estate career took off. She was making good money, winning awards, traveling for conferences. She had new friends, new interests, new passions, and Michael was happy for her. He was proud of her. But somewhere in there, she'd stopped being curious about him. She'd stopped asking about his day beyond the surface level. She'd stopped touching him when she walked past. She'd stopped looking up from her phone when he talked. "I felt like a piece of furniture in my own house," he said. I'd tell her about something that happened at work, and she'd say, "Uh-huh," while scrolling through listings on her phone. I'd suggest we go somewhere for the weekend, and she'd say she was too busy. Every conversation we had was about her clients, her sales, her schedule. He paused. And then this girl at work, she asked me one day how I was doing. Really asked. And when I started to answer, she put down what she was doing and looked at me, and I realized it had been years since anyone looked at me like I was worth listening to. I'm not defending what Michael did. There's no defense for cheating, but I understood how he got there. Patricia had gotten so consumed with her own life that she'd stopped making space for his. She'd stopped choosing him, and instead of telling her, instead of saying, "I feel invisible to you," he found someone who made him feel seen. Michael and Patricia divorced. Patricia told me later that the part that haunted her wasn't the cheating. It was realizing that he was right. She couldn't remember the last time she'd asked him a real question about his life. Couldn't remember the last time she'd looked at him and really seen him. She'd been so excited about her new career, her new identity beyond being a mother, that she'd forgotten she was also a wife. By the time she realized what she'd lost, it was too late. Michael had already checked out emotionally. The affair was just the symptom. The disease was years of being invisible in his own marriage. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Marriage isn't a thing you achieve and then you're done. It's not a contract where you both agree to stay and that's enough. Marriage is a daily choice to keep choosing the person you chose. It's putting down your phone when they're talking to you. It's asking them how their day was and actually listening to the answer. It's noticing when they're off and asking about it instead of waiting for them to bring it up. It's remembering what they told you yesterday and following up today. It's the accumulation of 1,000 small moments where you say, through your attention and your presence, "You matter, you're worth my time, I still choose you." You may be thinking right now that this sounds exhausting. You may be thinking, "I'm already tired, I've got work and kids and aging parents and a mortgage and I can barely keep my head above water." You want me to add one more thing to the list? I know you're tired. I know life is hard and complicated, and there's never enough time for everything. But here's what I also know. Every single person who sat in my office after their marriage fell apart, every single one has said the same thing. I wish I'd tried harder. I wish I'd paid more attention. I wish I'd chosen them. Not one person has said, "I'm glad I spent more time on my phone." Not one person has said, "I'm glad I prioritized my career over my marriage." Not one person has said, "I'm glad I stopped trying." They all regret the same thing. They regret the distance they let grow. They regret the moments they missed. They regret not choosing their partner when they still had the chance. You have the chance right now, today, this moment. Your partner is sitting somewhere in your house or at work or driving home, and they're making little bids for your attention that you might not even notice. They text you something funny. They tell you about something that happened. They ask if you want to watch a show together tonight, and you have a choice. You can turn toward them, or you can turn away. Do it enough times, and one day they'll stop making bids. One day they'll stop trying to connect with you because they've learned you're not available. And that's when the marriage dies. Not in one dramatic moment, in the slow accumulation of all the times you chose something else. I'm 62 years old. I've been married to David for 36 years. We've raised 2 kids who are now adults with kids of their own. We've survived job losses and sick parents and a daughter's addiction and 1,000 other crises that could have broken us. And I can tell you with certainty that the only reason we're still married is because we kept choosing each other. Not perfectly. We've both turned away plenty of times. We've both gotten it wrong. But we've turned toward each other more than we've turned away, and that's made all the difference. Last night, David was reading something on his iPad, and I was doing a crossword puzzle, and he looked up and said, "Listen to this," and started reading me an article about something I don't even remember now. And I had a choice. I could keep doing my puzzle and say, "Uh-huh," while not really listening, or I could put down my pen and look at him. I put down my pen, I looked at him, I listened. It was 2 minutes of my life. 2 minutes where I chose him over a crossword puzzle. That's all it takes. 2 minutes of real attention. 2 minutes of turning toward instead of away. Do that enough times, over years and decades, and you build a marriage that lasts. Don't do it, and one day you'll wake up next to a stranger. Someone you used to know. Someone you forgot to keep knowing. I've watched over 200 marriages end in my office, and they all ended the same way. 2 people who stopped choosing each other. 2 people who let the distance grow until it was too wide to cross. Don't let that be you. Before you go, I want to ask you something. After 34 years of doing this work, I've learned that the people who watch videos like this are the ones who still care enough to try. That's you. So tell me in the comments, are you the one turning away or the one who stopped making bids? No judgment, just truth. And if this resonated, subscribe. I've got 34 years of stories, And I'm not done telling them yet. Maybe the next one will be exactly what you need to hear.